All right, so we are on chapter 4. When we were working on chapter 3, recall we were working with deductive reasoning. And deductive reasoning was when we had a formulated argument. This is where you had two premises and a conclusion, and you needed your major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion to get a full syllogism. If you were missing one of the premises, remember it was an entomeme. So just as a reminder, entomeme's missing one of these premises. So, all right, when we talked about deductive reasoning, we were talking about modus ponens, modus tollens, and so on and so forth. And those were the different formulas, the syllogisms that we were using to come to a conclusion in our argument. That was deductive reasoning, okay? Now, inductive reasoning is going to be a little bit different. Inductive reasoning is when we were actually using data to come to our conclusions. We'll get into our vocabulary in just a second. Inductive reasoning, the reason why it is different than deductive reasoning, because it allows you to think critically, because you're receiving data, and with that data, you have to come up with some thoughts on it. And I'm going to clarify that in just a minute when we talk about point of intersection. So when we talk about inductive reasoning, we're using said data. What we're doing is we're basing our thoughts on the data using statistics. We're using polls. We're gathering information from sorts of research so that we can come to a generalization. So we start with our evidence, our statistical evidence. That's our polls, that's our summary or our surveys. It's all the things that we're doing to try and gather information and evidence, which is the data, all right, to come with a statistical generalization, maybe some thoughts on the data. Okay, so we could say that when we go back to our syllogisms, we can kind of change it up a little bit and recognizing that not all, but most. Okay, so we could say in a generalization, based on statistical evidence, we are going to have a generalization to come to our conclusion. So the difference here would be, oops, sorry. I gotta go back up. My notes got a little confusing. We can say most A's are B's. So if I encounter an A, it's most likely going to be a B. This is inductive reasoning when we can say most A's are B's. So if I come across an A, it's most likely a B. But there are exceptions, and we recognize that because as much statistical evidence as we come across, the problem is sometimes the data is as much data as we can gather, and we can make a generalization based on all that information that we get. When we talk about there are exceptions, the reason why is oftentimes we can get as much data as we think we have, but as we get more data, we might find that our generalizations might change because the data, the more we get, might change how we see things. That, my friends, is the point of intersection. So I'm going to give you a quick video on what point of intersection means to kind of help you understand. When we talk about inductive reasoning, this is where, as we talk about critical thinking, here's where, our feet meet the ground, and this is where we're actually doing that critical thinking, where we're gathering information and applying it. Again, we are gathering our evidence and we're coming up with generalizations, understanding that most does not equate all. Okay, and again, when we talk about statistical generalizations and we're talking about all the data that we get, all that information, okay, the problem is oftentimes people say, oh, this proves it. There's no proving. It's just saying that statistically it is probable, okay? This is why it's really important that we understand inductive reasoning. And I'm going to give you a little bit more in just a second. But first, take a minute and look at our point of intersection to help you understand what it means to gather information and how more information might change how we look at data.